Hi, I'm Bobby Harrison. I'm a guitar tutor at ICMP, and in this lesson we're going to learn a 12-bar blues solo. It's in the good old-fashioned key of A. I'm just going to play it with the backing track and then I'll break it down. Here we go. So it's a 12-bar blues in the key of A. We'll just quickly have a look at the rhythm guitar part. Now, we're working with 3 chords here. So we're working essentially with the chords of A7, which we're going to call our 1 chord, D7, which we're going to call our 4 chord, and E7, which we're going to call our 5 chord. There's a turnaround at the end of the rhythm track as well, which I'll break down, but you may be familiar with these shuffle patterns. That's essentially what we're doing under the rhythm guitar part. Just very quickly, I'll break that down. Essentially what we're doing, this shape is going to be representing our A chord or our A7 chord. I'm putting my first finger on the 5th fret on the low E string and my second finger on the 7th fret on the A string. That's a little bit of a stretch because we have to stretch our 4th finger up to play the 9th fret on the A string as well. And essentially what we're doing here is we're playing a power chord, just a root and a 5th if you know your intervals. So it's that classic kind of Jimmy Reed shuffle, and the structure of the song is it's going to be 4 bars on A. So this is going to be our A shape. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. On the 5th bar, we change to D or D7. And what we do, we just move this whole shape onto the next group of strings. So our first finger is on the 5th fret on the A string, and our second finger is on the 7th fret on the D string. We're playing the same shape. We do that for 2 bars. Then we go back to A for 2 bars. So that makes 8 bars. For the next bar, we move our D shape up 2 frets, so we're playing E now. So our first finger should be on the 7th fret on the A string, and our second finger should be on the 9th fret on the D string. And we just play 1 bar of E, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we move it down 2 frets to play D for 1 bar. Then we go back to our A shape. And then we have a little turnaround at the end. So when we go back to our A shape, we have this. So what that is, that's actually an F7 moving down to an E7. If you're not familiar with this shape, you might be familiar with this first position C chord, and you may be familiar. So what that is, that's just quickly the 3rd fret on the A string, 2nd fret on the D string, open G, and 1st fret on the B string. And if you add your 4th finger to the 3rd fret on the G, you get a C7. Now that's a movable shape. We can move that up all the way so that our 3rd finger is on the 8th fret. That gives us an F7. And then for the turnaround, we move it down 1 fret to E7. So that rhythm part, if we put it all together, goes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, and so that's 4 bars on A, one bar on E, one bar on D, one bar on A, and I'll turn around at the end. So that's the structure we're soloing over. So that's very important to know what you're soloing over. This will come in particularly handy if you find yourself at a blues jam. So what we're going to do now is we're going to learn the solo that I played at the start. We're going to break it down lick by lick. But the really important part, or the really important ingredient, one of the core ingredients that goes into blues phrasing and blues soloing, is space and some other techniques or approaches that you may have heard of, such as call and response phrasing, where you play a musical question followed by a musical answer. So it's called call and response phrasing or question and answer phrasing. So blues soloing is very conversational. Don't feel that you have to fill every single space. Repetition is very important. So, you know, if you play a nice phrase, the second time around you might want to embellish it, add to it, or play something similar with a similar rhythm perhaps. So you'll find a lot of this in this solo. You know, it's a very kind of conversational style of playing. So the scale we're going to base a lot of this solo on is the good old-fashioned A minor pentatonic scale. You may have learnt this from a previous video. Fingering is optional. I use my third finger on the 8th fret there, just because it's just the way I play, because I might want to go into a bend, but you can use your 4th finger. Just very quickly, that's 5, 8 on the low E, 5, 7 on the A, 5, 7 on the D, 5, 7 on the G, 5, 8 on the B, and 5, 8 on the high E. Now, it's beyond the remit of this lesson, but we're going to be stretching out into other positions of this scale. So if you know the 5 positions of the A minor pentatonic scale, then that is an advantage. But if not, you can just learn these licks anyway. I'm going to break them down note for note and fret by fret. We're going to add a couple of notes into the mix. So if this theory goes over your head, don't worry about it at this point, but the notes that make up the A minor pentatonic scale are A, C, D, E, and G. As far as intervals are concerned, the function of each note in relation to the root note, we have the A is the root, the C is our minor third, the D is our perfect 4th, the E is our perfect 5th, and the G is our flat 7. I'm also adding into the mix, I'm also adding a major third. I'm adding a C sharp note, which is going to work over our 1 chord. It's going to work over our A7 chord. If you're lost at any point with this theory, don't worry about it for now. You can just learn this solo. So without further ado, I better break that solo down. So our first lick, 1, 2, 3. That's our first lick. I'll play it slowly. 1, 2, 3. So I'm playing 5, hammering on to 6 on the G string, and then we have this, what I call a partial bar. This is very important in the blues because this kind of barring comes up very, very frequently. So I'm laying the bar in the first finger across the top 2 strings on the 5th fret. So I'm going 5, hammer to 6, and then barring 5 on the B and 5 on the high E. And then I slide from the 8th fret up to the 10th fret on the B string. It's a grace note slide. Now a grace note slide, or a grace note, is 2 notes occurring in the space of 1, essentially. So you don't really hear it like that. You don't hear it as 2 notes, you just hear it as a... So you just slide into it. So 1, 2, 3. Now what I do, you get a lot of repetition in the blues, and what I do is I address that note, that A note, that's our root note. I address that, I play it 3 times, so 1, 2, 3. So the second part of this lick, after I've played this note 3 times, I pull off to 8, then go back to 10 on the B. Then I have this quick hammer on from 8 to 9 on the high E. And what I'm doing there, I'm actually hammering from the minor third to the major third. Now, that major third is a chord tone. That's a C sharp. It's a chord tone. It's the third of this A7 chord. Again, if you know your theory, if you know your intervals, that will be useful to you. But if you don't, again, just learn this lick, and it's going to sound great over a 12-bar blues. So 1, 2, 3. That's our first lick. Our second lick goes like this: 1, 2, 3. So you may have noticed it's very similar to the first lick, and this is what I mean by repetition, you know, and call and response phrasing. If our first phrase is a musical question, so that sounds like it asks a question, and then we go, that could be a musical reply. So the first few notes are the same until we get to that pull off, and then we go. So that's some grace notes happening there. So it's going to be 9 on the G, and you want to do a grace note slide down to 7, and then we pick up this double stop. Now a double stop is it's basically when you play 2 notes at once. And what we do with the second finger, that's going to be on 5 on the G, and the first finger is going to be on 4 on the B. And then we quickly, as a grace note, so 2 notes in the space of 1, if that makes sense, you know, you want to very quickly slide these up 1 fret so that the second finger is on 6 on the G and the first finger is on 5 on the B string. So if you put that together, 1, 2, 3. So far we've got 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now we move on to what happens there. We're now playing, we're on bar 5, and our harmony has changed. We're now playing under the, we're now playing over, should I say, the D7 chord. So this lick, what we've got there, it's another double stop, and this is a kind of Chuck Berry, almost the kind of train whistle sound that you hear in blues. This kind of came from T-Bone Walker, and Chuck Berry kind of got hold of it and did his own thing with it, but this is very, very common in the blues. So what I'm doing here, I'm putting my second finger on the 7th fret on the B string, and my third finger on the 8th fret on the high E string, and you want to tease that slightly sharp. It sounds wrong, but it actually works in the context of the solo. So just tease it slightly sharp. We're not bending it as far as a semitone. You know, it's just a blue note. It's a microtonal bend, as some people might say. I know I'm throwing a lot of terminology at you that you might not be familiar with, but some of you will. So we want to bend that slightly sharp, and then we go back to our partial bar again. So that's 5 on the high E and 5 on the B, and then we've got 8 on the B. Again, you can tease that slightly sharp, and then we play 5 on the high E. So that phrase goes like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we play a similar phrase. Again, this is repetition in the blues. We kind of embellish that previous phrase, and we go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we hit this double stop again. We play that twice, and then again that partial bar. So that's 5 on the high E, 5 on the B, and then this grace note slide from 8 up to 10 on the B string. So if you put that phrase together, it goes like this: 2, 3, 4, and. There's a little double stop or a kind of a little bit of what I call kind of rhythmic punctuation at the end of that phrase. So I'll just play that phrase again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. 1, 2, 3, and. So you get this a lot in the blues. This kind of bridges the gap between rhythm and lead playing, essentially. So at this point, we're going back to the 1 chord on our backing track. So we have you want to bar the seventh fret at the G on the G and the B strings. If you hit the 7th fret on the E string, it's not an illegal note. It could work, but you want to really kind of focus on the G and the B string. So that double stop there, and then what I'm doing there, I'm moving this whole thing down 2 frets, but I'm switching fingers, so I'm doing it with my first finger. So that's 5 on the G, 5 on the B. But then there's a grace note hammer. Keep the first finger where it is, but a grace note hammer from 5 to 6 with the 2nd finger on the G string. So a little bit of punctuation there, kind of sounds nice to intersperse your solos with a little bit of essentially rhythm guitar, you know, some double stops. So if we play the solo from the start, we've got this 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 4, and. 2, 3, go. Now we come to the last 4 bars of the solo. That's what's going on in the rhythm guitar. So the last 4 bars of a blues solo, that's where you can afford to be a little busier with your phrasing. It's kind of a musical summing up of everything that's come before. We've had the call and response phrasing, the repetition. But what I did, I really kind of, I played a double stop at a triplet rhythm and really kind of, I guess, overcooked it. You know, just to kind of drive the point, you know, just to kind of drive it home. So what I did was this. So the last 4 bars of the solo goes like this. 1, 2, 3, and. So this double stop, very, very common in the blues and in rock and roll, rock music. Billy Gibbons, you might hear play this a lot. You might hear Angus Young play this kind of thing. So you hear it in rock as well. So it's 9 on the G and 8 on the B string. I'm playing that with my 3rd and 2nd finger. I'm actually kind of resting on that. I'm not fretting anything with this 1st finger. I'm just resting it lightly across the strings to mute any unwanted strings. And I'm approaching, this is the double stop, but I'm approaching it from 1 fret below each time. So I'm going, so when I play 3 notes, the first note I slide in from 1 fret below. So if you get used to that, and I think in the context of this solo, I played it 7 times. Let me just check that. 1, 2, 3, 8. Yeah, so I played it 7 times. So it goes 1, 2, 3, and. And I topped it off with this, which is a grace note slide from 9 on the G string down to 7, and then we pull off to 5, and then we play the root note, so we play 5 on the D string. We play that twice. So if we put that phrase together slowly, so 1, 2, 3, and. and up to speed. 1, 2, 3, and. So that was the next bit. It goes like this. 1. Again, there's repetition in there. So very similar to the lick we opened the solo with. In fact, the first 4 notes are the same. So that's 5 on the G, hammer to 6, and then 5 on the B, 5 on the high E. But then I play 8 on the B, tease that slightly sharp, and then pick up 5 on the high E. The last phrase is almost the same as the previous phrase, except I change the last note. So instead of going, I go. So the last note is 5 on the B string instead of 5 on the high E. And again, for the theory buffs among you, that E note, that last note is the note that the chord that we're playing over at that point is an E7. So I'm hitting the root note of the chord that we're playing over, and that's a really, really musical thing to be aware of in blues. Harmonic awareness, knowing, you know, it's fine to play over a 12-bar blues using the A minor pentatonic scale if you're in the key of A. You're not going to play any wrong notes, but having that awareness of the notes, the chords that you're playing over, and adding chord tones can be a really, really kind of harmonically sophisticated and musical thing to do. So let's just play that solo over the backing track, and we'll put it all together and you'll get to hear it in context. So I hope you enjoyed learning that solo. Feel free to take any of these licks and incorporate them into your own playing. Hopefully you put them to good use next time you find yourself at a jam night or playing along to a blues backing track.